So pleasure to be here, and thanks a lot to LPC and Tiga to organize such an event, and more than anything, thanks to all of you to attend. I think it's a great opportunity to talk about product, especially after COVID, and I'm really looking forward to hear about what all the other guys have to say as well. So as Conchi said, I'm Jeremy. I'm a Chief Product Officer at Getalife, and I've been leading product for the past 5-6 years in Jobandtalent through their hypergrowth. And today, I'm going to talk about jumping the gap between being an individual contributor to a manager, right? And some reflections around kind of tips and how can you work on training your managerial skills through your individual contributor career path. So let's get started. I think this has a small delay. Okay. So first of all, who is a PM in the room? Product managers. Okay. A majority. That's a good sign. And who would consider themselves a product leader? In all humility. But so that's interesting, no? Like a lot of product managers and not so many product leaders, and that makes me think, what is a manager and what is a leader really? Sorry, I'm trying to go to the next slide. Here you go. So what is a manager and what is a leader? No, and the way I see it, of course, there's a lot of overlap, but I like to look at the dichotomy of it. How is it different? No, I like to think about managers as people that put things together, information processes, in order to align and to optimize an outcome so that things just get together and just work, right? And I like to think about leaders in a quite different way, in people trying to challenging the status quo, being able to say no to what may seem common sense, that try to inspire kind of out-of-the-box ideas of where we're going in the future and what the future might look like. And this sometimes also means reshuffling what works very well to be able to kind of go to the next level, right? And so I think it's interesting thinking about that. What is a product manager? Is it a product manager or is it a product leader, really? The GIF doesn't work. That's a shame. It's basically a little kid running around with ducks around. And so, are you a product leader? Are you a product manager? Actually, I think it depends on the context. I would expect most product managers to be leaders and to be product leaders and to try to kind of be able to say no, critically challenge, and inspire the people, not only making things work together, right? And is being a product manager or a product leader exclusive to managing people or being an individual contributor? It all kind of mixed together. No? It becomes a bit ambiguous. The title of product manager is ambiguous by itself. Like, are you even managing a product? Yeah, I'll leave that question open. So today I want to look at, okay, I'm expecting product managers to be leaders through their career path as an individual contributor, and how can they learn actually on a few things that might help them think about how to jump that gap to become a manager. And quickly, who am I to even talk about that, about product management or product leadership and managing people? I've been doing product management for about 12 years, and this is kind of the last 8 years being at Rocket Internet in Berlin, where I learned a lot about the craft of product management, how to discover fast, how to deliver fast. Then moved to a manager role as a CPO in a very small startup called Monarchy in Berlin as well, and learn more about strategy and managing people and cross-departmental impact, like what is the role of product in the larger organization. And then moved to Spain, to Madrid here, where I joined Jobandtalent as a senior product manager, managing the recommendations team, and it was a ton of fun. And so coming back to the individual contributor role. And because of context in Jobandtalent and in the past 6 years, I've had the opportunity to lead the product team there through a crazy amount of growth, from basically around kind of 100 million valuation to 2.5 billion today, from a team of 100 people to 2.5 thousand today. And it's been a great opportunity, and now I'm at Getalife, democratizing life insurance, and basically building the team, growing the people and the product culture in the company. And basically switching from those kind of IC and managerial role, I've had the chance to actually experience what is expected, where am I doing well on both sides of the fences, right? So let's get started around what is product management. There's probably 1,000 different articles around what is product management, and probably most of them are half true and half wrong. I like a definition that is from Sergio Leiva, that was the co-founder of Carto. He works as VP product in Inditex. Now he's a product advisor at K-Fund. He has a really cool article about when should you hire your first product manager. And one of the lines that struck me was the role of the product manager is de-riskifying product decisions, and that apply along the whole supply chain of building products. Like discovering it, delivering it. What is the business risk? What is the legal risk? What is the brand risk towards your user? Like at the end, you want to make sure that you have a high confidence in what you're building. And if you think really about that, it is an individual contributor role, right? There's no mention on managing people, creating culture on that side. So for sure, there's a strong part of individual contributor. This is the way I see the career path of product management, starting with product owner, which also assistant product manager, all the way up to chief product officer, where you have kind of a part that switches between lead product manager, also called group product managers, where in some organization you're seen more as a mentor, in some organization you have actually direct reports. And what I want to do is kind of look at those different expectations across that career path and what you can learn from it there. So let's start with the product owner. So maybe a somewhat polemical statement that for me, a product owner needs to excel at delivery. That's the learning path of the product owner role. And polemical because the big question around product management and people doing too much project management, which we'll come back to. But in a nutshell, I think it will serve you for your whole career to know how to deliver product fast, gather feedback quickly, talk with engineering, talk to design, being able to delegate so that the team can function very efficiently. How do you slice things down into scopes that make sense is one of the hardest exercises that you can do, like the whole concept about MVP and should we even do MVP. There's a lot of books around that, Lean Startup, Build Trap, Testing Business Ideas that I would love to recommend. But basically, it starts with excelling at delivery. Then you can grow into the product manager role, if it lets me go. And there's a real switch on the product manager role where 80% of your work, I would expect you to do discovery, to do research, to understand how behaviors on your product kind of correlate or cause different business impacts, right? And to start excelling at how to discover that. So user interviews, focus groups, prototype testing, beta testing on the SaaS part and of B2B, A/B testing, of course, et cetera, right? And the most important difference there is that at the point of product manager, really you can start training some skills to be able to become a manager later. And that is probably single-handedly, in my opinion, the most important skill is responsibility, accountability, and ownership. Because you decide on what you're going to build, suddenly you're responsible for what is being built and the outcome of it, of course, right? And that alone is the most important. Whether a chief product officer or a head of product or a senior product manager, that responsibility and taking that not for granted that other people will fall back if something fails, but that it's all on you and that ownership is on you, can take you so far away. And that leads me to a little interlude, the project management interlude. So I've been talking about the expectation of product owners to do delivery and then product managers to do discovery. And what I'm seeing in a lot of companies is that a lot of people are stuck in the project management side because it's very time-consuming. So one question here is, in a tech company, as a product manager, is the value that you bring to the company delivering stuff, or the value that you bring to the company is bring a business acumen, thinking about the right initiatives to do, looking at technology in innovative ways that is going to change basically the strategy of the company or the industry, having that customer obsession of really representing the user. No, of course, my opinion is that the latter are way more important than delivery. As a matter of fact, 1 or 2 weeks late is not the end of the world compared to getting it wrong on that side, no? And being stuck on the delivery part can be very risky because suddenly you can be seen as not only the person that is not bringing the rest of the value, but also actually the person that is breaking the blockers because you're not engineering, but you're representing engineering on, hey, this is going to take longer, we cannot do that, et cetera, et cetera. It's not really a place you want to be in. What are type of symptoms that happen that you're doing too much project management. Stakeholders are one step ahead of you, so they kind of tell you what you need to do. And the worst is, they're right. Like, they know better than you what you should be doing. And this is a sign that you're not spending enough time on discovery, of course, right? And it's usually frustrating for the product manager. It's usually frustrating for the whole business. Another symptom is you're not seeing yourself talking to users that much, or even worse, you're not seeing yourself using your product that much. In some companies, it's very easy to use your product. In some companies, it's extremely hard to use your own product. In Jobandtalent, for example, it was very hard because I'm not a blue-collar worker. I'm not waiting for my paycheck at the end of the month, and if there's like 10 euros off, it's actually meaning the world to me. And so that's very hard to try for yourself, no? But you need to try to get there, and that's very time-consuming. So if you see those symptoms, probably you're spending a bit too much time with your team trying to optimize and micromanage what everybody is delivering at a given point. No? And project management in IT is complex, it's time-consuming. Spending that time is often needed for things to go out. And really what happens is that the project manager feels a vacuum that exists and is stuck with that responsibility and cannot get away from it. In my experience, the only way to get away from that is talking with your manager, thinking about what's the role of engineering on delivery. Should we get Scrum Masters or Program Manager or IT Project Managers? I don't really care, but someone that is responsible for that so that me, myself, as a project manager, I can grow and I can do the discovery that I want to do and that the business needs me to do. Because really, talk to most CEOs or co-founders of startups, they will tell you, I need project managers that add value on the business. So be careful, because this is a real stopper on the career growth as well, and on kind of what is the skill that you're training there. Then, senior product manager. So congrats, you excel at discovery, you excel at delivery, you highlight the not so obvious, you know exactly how to run the methodology of both things. The next step, and what I'm expecting from a senior product manager, is really challenging how the product strategy is supporting the company vision, challenging directly your manager on what are we building, and of course challenging in a smart way, no? Because challenging without any data or any actual insights is pointless. But this, you can see, you start growing on your managerial side. As a product manager, the power of responsibility was super important, and now it's actually kind of thinking strategically and challenging the status quo. And again, we're coming back to the idea of being a leader, no? Also, another way that you can train a bit to become a manager and a senior product manager is thinking about the organization of your team. If you start thinking about what's the strategy of my team and where I'm going, you might start thinking about, do I have all the people I need on my team to be able to get it to the next level? Some other obvious example that I just mentioned is people that take care of the delivery. Some other example would be, maybe you should have more people looking at data scientists, data analysts, product marketing managers to be able to do better rollouts, right? If you start looking at this and question, at the end, everybody wants to build a massive, great product that's super, super good. And you have to realize sometimes you need the people to make that happen. And so questioning that and bringing that to the table actually brings you all the way up to the kind of managerial thinking about, how do I organize my whole team and what's the headcount of my team, what's the budget that we need and stuff, no? Trying to put those gears into motion. Now, a question for you all. This is also a fantastic GIF, so it's a shame. But is this you, right? Are you the rock star, senior product manager, God mode, everybody respects you because you're such in control of your domain, and anything to do about discovery and delivery, you're there and they need to ask you. And suddenly, you start becoming the bottleneck there as that rock star that everybody depends on you, And becoming the bottleneck, as much as it's fun and actually rewarding as a person, and I would say that I've been there at some point managing like 4 different teams and like being totally over my head, but feeling important in the organization by itself. The problem of becoming a bottleneck is that eventually things will go slow because they depend on you. Eventually, quality is not going to be there. And suddenly, being the rock star, you're going to be the aging rock star, right? And you need to be careful about that because also as your manager, you're going to see that person as the commando that is on the field and can solve any problem, but you're not going to be seen as the person that can delegate, optimize organizations in a way that people feel empowered around you into working with you and that things run smoothly in that way, right? And you want to go in that direction, really, if you want to grow in the managerial path. one thing is that you might not want to. So it's a question to ask yourself on, am I on too many topics? Are too many people relying on me? And how do I start that discussion on how people rely less on me, and how can I delegate to engineering, to product design, to other product managers? And that leads me to my second interlude, hiring. So thinking about delegation and thinking about team organization as a senior product manager, you might start thinking about people, and people is hiring. And a lot of people, and that includes managers too, think about hiring as this is HR. And hiring is really, after responsibility, in my opinion, the second most important thing as a manager to get right. If you think about the impact of joining a new organization and being able to bring with you 3, 4, 5 people that are talented and are going to work well, the value that bring to your organization, to the company, is massive, Because suddenly things are going to go well, the product is going to be developed well, you're going to spend less time on feedback, or even worse, firing people and having to hire more, and everything's just going to get together, right? So hiring is also something that you can train earlier on. In Jobandtalent, as a matter of fact, we had junior product managers looking for profiles of, that would fit the organization. These are the type of people that we're looking for, and kind of creating that backlog, and then even starting being into interviews and all that. So start already have that mentality that the organization is not just my little product, right? It's cross-team, it's cross-organization, it's talent. And I was very surprised when junior product managers would come to me proactively being like, hey, can I help you find the right people for the team? I know we're hiring. And usually you would expect more referrals, but there was purely kind of, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and just spam people. And that for me was very interesting as a manager. I was like, wow, that person that has been in project management maybe for 1 year is already thinking kind of way ahead on what hiring means to the organization and to himself. And another interesting thing around hiring that you can train throughout your career is thinking about your peers and colleagues not only as friends and people that are fun to work with, but really a network, This is the most handy thing when you have to hire a big team that the people that you really love to work with and that love to work with you, and you've already created that relationship that you're going to help each other. And that's something that you can constantly and consistently work on as you grow, even as an individual contributor. You don't have to wait to become a manager, and you definitely don't have to think that HR is going to do it for you. Most of the case, they won't. And then that brings me to what is product management as a manager? And very important thing that you're going to be doing a lot of your time, or you should probably be doing a lot of your time, that depends also on the scale of the organization, is evangelizing, right? Talking about your product, talking about your vision on where you're going to conference and talk and stuff like that. And as I talked about already, it's something that you can start doing as a product manager, and it's definitely super expected as a senior product manager to grow past your own product team, but even past your department. Again, in Jobandtalent, we were talking about how should we set up the organization not by product, marketing, operations, sales, but actually thinking about product and having people from sales and operations reporting to product, so that you start thinking about the whole business more than just your product, and kind of foster that type of thinking, right? And this is just an extreme level of that. And an interesting thing about evangelizing is that the word is beautiful, and a lot of people see that as you go there and tell you about the awesome vision, you do a cool demo, and everybody is just super awe-inspired, and it's all rainbows and unicorns. But evangelizing can also be confrontation. It can also be like, we're not talking about the same thing, and we have to align. And this is sometimes not talking, it's sometimes talking to people that have a huge experience and very different views from you. And it can be hard as well. An example that I've got, again, in Jobandtalent was working with different countries, talking to country managers across Mexico and Germany and Sweden and France, etc. Country managers would own the P&L. I would own the roadmap. We would talk about the metrics that we're trying to optimize, but very rarely would actually coincide. And at some point, we're just talking about different things, and it creates a huge frustration because they have needs, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do this. It doesn't make any sense for me. And so I had to change the dynamic of the conversation on saying, hey, we released that feature, which as a matter of fact was called self-service, which was like self-matching of workers with potential vacancies. What are your numbers on the amount of vacancies that are filled automatically for our AI? Is it 15%? Is it 70%? And kind of forcing the confrontation on, this is what matters to the company, so it should matter to you, right? So evangelizing, it's not easy, and it requires some practice, because you can get stuck into kind of just status quo, and things getting frustrating for a little while. And also, not everybody likes that. Think about it as well. And then there's people, right? Your new product is people, and there's things that are quite hard to train before, like managing expectation of raises and compensation and stuff like that, because these are very specific conversation that you may have. But there's other stuff that you can do. One of them, for example, raising the bar, the idea of the culture, right? So my definition of culture is what people do when you're not around. And the best tool to actually drive culture in a way or another is one, feedback, and second, escalation. Escalation is there's a problem, and someone needs to come to you to actually decide on what is the solution of the problem. Deciding on what to do there will set a mark on what is okay and what is not okay, right? And around that, there's the whole concept of raising the bar. On people expecting a lot from themselves and from the people around them. And that's something that you can for sure train and support earlier in your career as well. A simple example would be, probably most of you have a retro every 2 weeks or something like that. And so the retro can be, hey, what was good, what was bad, let's list it and try to get some actions on it. But a retro can also be, how do we get twice as good next week or in the following sprint? How do we get 10 times better in a month? What does that mean to us? How much do we want to achieve this? And are we aligned on the fact that we want to achieve this? And this is a very simple example of kind of creating that culture of, we want to be awesome and want to build an awesome product, right? Another funny story that I've got around trying to get into conversations and doing more than is expected from a product manager. In Jobandtalent, during a lot of organizational change that we've been through, at some point there was nobody looking at headcounts and budgeting for the product team and engineering. So we didn't know how many people we had, we didn't know how much we could grow or not. And I kind of decided, okay, I'm going to build a model, I'm going to look at how many people we are, I'm going to take average salaries, and hopefully it will give us somewhat a picture of this. Ended up that HR used that model, then we updated with real salaries, and ended up that I got invited to the P&L meeting of the whole company. That opened a tremendous amount of doors suddenly, no? I'm in a meeting where we're talking about the strategy of, are we profitable, are we growing, what countries are doing better or worse, what are the initiatives that we're putting in place that otherwise I wouldn't be part of. So thinking about that, about hiring, about budgeting, and how you can get into that conversation, if there's a hole, is something that is very valuable. And then some things are similar. Again, if you think about people as a product, you can think of it as a framework, and you can think about lead generation, about conversion, about acquisition, retention, churn. And you can apply that to your own team as well, right? And that can help in terms of kind of the product manager experience, thinking about how do I do this? No, how do I activate a new employee? Well, I need to look at the onboarding in the exact way that I would do in a SaaS, right? And so that's very important. You can actually create a lot of synergies on that. So just to wrap up very quickly, how do you go from A to B, or maybe from IC to M? My final thoughts on all of this. No? There's some clear things that you can do that I believe most people don't do, like the hiring, like the budgeting, for example. But really, it's about planning your own growth. And I've always been super amazed managing product managers and product designers that had very clear what they wanted to learn and would demand from me, I want this. Like, if you're not giving this to me, I'm going to leave. And I respect that tremendously, of not being stuck in project management and needing to learn around, I need to develop my business acumen, I need to develop my methodology to get used to users. How can we work on that? No? And make sure that you want to excel at this before you move on. There's a lot of cases of people put in leadership without having passed through the experience of failing at delivery, trying to deliver something of 2 weeks for 6 months in a row and failing at that, and that hurts, and you learn a lot from that. And it can put you in weird places where you're the manager, you have some expectations, and you're under a lot of strain because you're underperforming, because there's a lack of knowledge on a lot of things, and it's hard. It's something that you accumulate. And that can set you kind of for your career in a glass ceiling where you're not happy and you're not sure what you need to do next and stuff. And really, there is no rush. It's a lot of work to be a manager on top of being a product manager. And it will be much easier if you really take the time on, how good am I at this? No? And question yourself around that. And the second point on reflecting the value that you're bringing, again, what is your strength? Is it business? Is it tech? Is it design? Is it whatever else? How do I make the most of that for the company? And am I really making the most of that for the company? What I see is that some organizations just don't allow that to happen. Especially in big organizations, you have a lot of people thinking about strategy. And if you think that your ideas can help the strategy, maybe you're wrong and you need to work on it. Or maybe you're right, but you're not giving the chance of it. It is worth it to consider, do I need to kind of scale back into a small organization where I'm going to have more opportunities to train on this? Or is it better to be in that big company and just kind of wait for it to happen? I mentioned raising the bar, supporting hiring, thinking about the framework, challenging the strategy, I think is a great way to highlight that you're there and that you can have those thinking and that those ideas are correct. Just agreeing with the strategy of the company is something that in some cases is great, but in some cases it's just a lack of understanding of how clear the business is, no? Because very often in tech startups, it's not clear at all. And then talk to people, seek mentorship on what good looks like, I think is always good advice into how to jump that gap. And that's it. And I think we have some time for questions. Thank you. Thank you.